Everything going smooth down there at the plant?
Yeah, we're in the process of cleaning the basin, so there's that sludge removal activity going on, but it's all going well.
Okay, good.
Hello, Anthony.
Hello, Joe. How are you?
Good. I'll introduce you to the board members here. Jerry, Mark, and Tom is by phone.
Hello. Hi.
Hello, all.
We were just talking about you.
I can come back later.
Most unfavorable, Anthony. It's horrible.
Oh. Well, that's the kind of meeting it's going to be, huh? So I'm ready. Joe, I know you guys have stuff to do in front of this, right? So I'll just kind of go on mute maybe, and what do you think?
And then
says 3:28 on my screen here, so why don't we at least get our meeting underway with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. With that, we'll accept a motion to approve the minutes from our March 15th meeting.
So moved. I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And the chair votes aye, and moved. Approved, rather. Financial reports, Joe?
yes. For the month of March, just a quick highlight, we did complete the audit, and you'll see the audit report coming up. We're now looking at February and March results that Lisa has tabulated. And I think as far as cash reserve, everything is pretty much what we expected. You know, we had borrowed $3 million to fund the engineering work and consulting work on the raw water project. And we're in the process of spending those monies down. So there are some large expenditures related to that project. It did elevate our cash position when it came in the door, of course, because it was a lot all at once, but we've been spending that down as we plan to. We did have some larger expenses, and Lisa has noted those in the report just compared to a year ago. If you do have any questions, she's got those items noted. Did have a loss of revenue last year starting in March, and that is noted as well, just due to COVID and beginning of shutdowns of some industrial customers a year ago. Otherwise, I didn't have anything else to note on the financials.
When was the last time we had a negative return on rate base?
It's been a while, Jerry. That was due to some of the unusual expenses and the reduction in revenue due to COVID.
Right.
But I'm expecting that will pop back up here in April and May to a more normal level.
Okay.
That caught my eye as well.
Yeah, that's not what we want on a continuing basis, for sure.
So we need a motion to approve the financial reports.
So moved. I'll second it.
Any questions of Joe or anybody on the financial report?
Just what he explained already.
Okay.
I'm good.
None, we'll all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carried. My mouth isn't kind of caught up with the end of tax season yet, so.
I thought tax season got extended.
That's part of the problem.
Oh, okay.
All right, superintendent's report.
Well, I'll begin with construction maintenance for March. We had a lot of main breaks. We had 7 main breaks. That's a little on the high side. Certainly kept the crew busy. Again, they do all those repairs on their own, night and day. No real pattern. Just sometimes when the frost goes out of the ground, things shift a little bit, and we have a few more, but that's a little bit on the high side. Usually in spring we begin our dead end hydrant flushing. That's kind of an ongoing water quality maintenance effort. We do have I think about 16 automatic flushing devices that we're implementing now or mobilizing. Most of those can't stay out in the field over winter because they freeze up. But we're now mobilizing that force and implementing those, which are really pay for themselves within a year or two. Be able to get a few lead laterals out of service and replaced, which is always a good thing. One of the items the crew is especially proud of, they have rehabbed a trailer bed into a dedicated concrete repair and replacement trailer. So all the equipment they have is just on that trailer bed at all times. So instead of moving stuff back and forth in the garage, you just have to haul the trailer out. They do a lot of concrete repair on all those main breaks and other work that we're doing. Pretty much the highlights for construction maintenance. We did some valve turning as well.
Oh, can I ask you one question?
Sure.
At the last meeting, I mentioned the one hydrant that was laying on the ground over on the south, the mall over there, Piggly Wiggly, and that stuff on the far south end of South Business Drive.
Yes.
Did they get a chance to check that?
That was a private hydrant as part of that strip mall area.
Okay.
So yes, they did check that out. It is the owner's responsibility. I'm not sure if that's been repaired yet or not, but we did take a look at that.
It's still laying on the ground next to the, I don't think anything's been repaired, but I just happened to notice that again the other day. So as long as we've looked at it, and it's not our responsibility. So
after you mentioned it, I drove by and looked at it too.
Okay.
You know, that site has kind of an extensive private system. The Southside Walmart area has an extensive private system. We try to avoid those just for the reason you're saying, that private owners don't always maintain them, but there are a few of those in the city system, in the city.
Didn't mean to interrupt your report.
Oh, no. I'll move on to customer relations and fiscal. One interesting thing, if you look on the first page, electronic payments went up from March of last year to March of this year by quite a lot. I think that ended up being about 20% jump in people paying electronic platform, mostly due to, I think, our shutting down the in-house pay window and people not being out and about as much. We view that as a positive. It's very efficient when we get electronic payments as opposed to cash or checks at a pay window. So we were happy to see that change. And I would expect that trend to continue. See, again, pretty typical amount of calls coming in to the office. No PSC complaints filed against or in concern of what we're doing. Service techs, these are the meter shop staff getting out and about with their miles driven, looking comparable to last year in March, up a little bit because, again, we started to shut down. Cross-connection inspection starting up again. Leak allowances, those are ongoing. And we're starting meter replacement as the vaccine has become available and people are more comfortable with us being in homes. We're getting back on the meter replacement program, as you can see, beginning in March. And then finally, website visits up from last year, 2,818 for the month of March. It's up about 8–9% from last year. Just a reminder that the Public Service Commission has allowed utilities to begin disconnections again in following April 15th. We haven't actually implemented any disconnections, but we have ramped up the process of notifying customers that they're delinquent, engaging them with phone calls. There now is another aid agency that's available that we're directing customers to who may have income affected by COVID. There are more resources available now. We don't want to disconnect any customers, but we have to begin collecting on these outstanding bills, both for water, sewer, garbage, and recycling fees. And those would be my highlights for construction relations and fiscal. And finally, moving into operations and the plant, we saw an increase from March or last year of about 7%, which we're happy to see. We're still a little bit below 2019 levels, about 2.8% down from 2019. But we're happy to see the improvement and normalizing compared to last year. We did get through the winter without any intake icing. That's very unusual. We think that's due to a fairly mild winter and higher water levels than normal. That's probably the first winter we have not had any icing for, I don't know, 15 years, I'm guessing. So very unusual, but we'll take that when we can get it. And otherwise, typical extensive list of maintenance going on in the plant, with a highlight being basin cleaning is starting up now, as we mentioned at the beginning, with the sludge removal, and that is a big maintenance activity for the springtime. Each basin will be cleaned. Crew goes in and looks at mechanical systems in the basins that have those, and that work is now all underway. And otherwise, the plant is in good condition.
Any questions for Joe?
I just had one. How many people are in danger of having their water utility shut off?
The last updated list I saw was about 50 customers, Tom, and we're hoping that'll keep whittling down as we pressure people and they realize that disconnection is coming. Then, you know, normally we see that number go down.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Joe? Mark?
Almost a good question though, Tom.
All right. Hearing no other questions, I'll accept a motion to accept Joe's report.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carried. Moving on. we want to move 5.3 up, seeing Anthony's on the screen here.
Sure.
Motion to move 5.3 up on the agenda?
Sure, I'll move for that.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Anthony. That catches.
Okay.
You're good.
Got it. There's that thumbs up. All right.
There you go. Yeah. We moved you up, so you're not just sitting there watching us go through the motions here. So.
Well, thank you for that.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that Joe shared a piece of, information with you. We're really doing an update. I don't know, Joe, what's 5.3 labeled on the agenda?
Oh, well, it is your healthcare strategic plan document that you sent me, Anthony, and I had advised the board that you've been working with us, or reminded them, for about 9 months with utility accountant, our broker, and myself. And the board had seen Anthony's complete draft document earlier, and now Anthony is here to give us a little bit of an update and more information on a potential action item coming forward.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah. So what was provided for this meeting were it was 6 pages, but 3 of them actually with the cover. The first 4 pages are things that were provided back in December, and really just to go through those quickly. We've gone through with the team that Joe referenced a discovery process. I mean, myself being new, being totally objective to what you're trying to achieve, we took a deliberate effort to get the team to think about what healthcare should mean, has meant, and should be in the future for the water utility. So that's what you're seeing kind of reflected on page 2 of the strategic plan after the cover, the first page after the cover. So that's a function of the discovery process that I had to go through. And the page 3 is really kind of a place where we will go back to consistently if we hold on to this. And this is, it's got 4 boxes on it, and a column to the left that says key strategic themes. What the boxes are goals in 4 different categories, that being financial goals, which are obviously critical to any entity. But when you're dealing with healthcare or benefits, compensation, if you will, employee satisfaction, are we meeting employee needs, is one other category. The 3rd box at the bottom left is how efficiently can we deliver this benefit, in this case, to people. And the last is very important, especially in healthcare, what behavior change goals might we have. So our approach is to get employers to think about how to balance those goals that are defined there, that we worked on, and try to move forward with those in mind. So we will go back. We have some measures that are drafted on these, but I think the measuring sticks, we haven't honed in on them yet, but there's some common measures that will get us on the financials. How are we tracking on a per employee cost basis once we implement some things, okay? Employee satisfaction, what is the feedback from the members, et cetera. So anyway, those goals, that's what we're gonna track to going forward. And the themes on the left were really kind of the emotional component of what do we want people to feel about this, and what do we need to occur. So we want it to be a competitive program. We're in a point where the workforce is changing potentially over time. So we need to be able to not only retain people, but future attraction. We need to be good stewards of the public funding. Defensible came out. Homegrown meant we really have historically had a distinctive benefit, and we want that to continue to play forward. Easy to use and affordable are pretty straightforward, but they're not very common in healthcare. So, you know, those are important tenets, if we can achieve them, that will make whatever we choose to do distinctive. Obviously, the sustainable one at the second from the last is very important to any strategy. Can we, you know, play to this over the long term? And then, again, I think part of your history is an excellent service model that, you know, is envisioned for the future. So I wanted to go through that just because that's the foundation of everything that we're kind of going toward. And so slide 4, which again was part of the original draft presentation of the strategy, is really, call it the directional playbook at the highest level. And this is where I'll pick up on the update. Okay, so, you know, the 2020 line, that's what I just covered. But in 2021, we decided to focus on this idea of a sponsored private clinic to reinforce really the utility's commitment to providing high value and local healthcare benefits. My belief is, and I think most that manage healthcare, if you can start with the front end of healthcare, you have a better chance of managing the back end of healthcare. So the front end is everyday care, preventive care, everyday needs that, let's just say, almost every person has some needs in those areas or should. And then the back end is very complex specialty care, different types of things. But if you don't plant the right resources at the front door, you're going to have a hard time controlling the back. Okay, so that's why we started with the private clinic concept. And there's a slide after this that gets through the steps we've taken. But conceptually, the little white box under 2021, it played into all the themes that we were, that are part of our goals and objectives. It could be a very competitive tool to add to the mix for benefits. It, of course, can be real easy to use. The model that we're pursuing is essentially a no-cost benefit at primary care for people, and it's carved out of the insurance process, so there's no insurance hassles. It's easy to use. Obviously, no cost means it's affordable, right? One of the things with healthcare, when you put too much cost on things, people defer care and maybe create worse outcomes in the long run. So to make high value of care, like primary care, important, give people access. And so that's the affordability side. This is a sustainable model. This is a common thing in large employers to have sponsored clinics. Smaller employers are pursuing models like we are to for different reasons, but I mean, for a variety of reasons, not necessarily different reasons. And this one, you know, we're trying to put forward a multi-clinic offering to people. That's our objective, to give people a little different choice, a little distinctive nature to what the water utility is doing. And again, every provider that we've interviewed, you know, we're looking at them from a service standpoint in terms of high access. How do they treat the patients? That's a step we've taken. So kind of that's as far as I would go, because that's the progress we've made, is to really go deep on the clinic. These other things on that page are potential future plays that build off of what we're doing with the clinic. So I would move to slides 5 and 6, and they're probably out of order. So maybe we should look at 6 real quick. You know, we've educated the team on this direct concepts of primary care, and there's some nuances to what different providers do, but I can get into that in Q&A. We've evaluated what the care models look like, the services and the costs. We've interviewed employees, and not interviewed, we've surveyed them to say, is this something that could add value to your life? And we've interviewed the provider candidates. So below that, I'm on 6. those steps that are in darker black are our next steps, and we're hoping to try to move through them when the time is right, when, you know, with board approval, et cetera. Slide 5 is just an interesting part of the dynamic that we put out in front. So I've summarized the survey we did of employees, and Joe, 26 of 30 employees responded from last record. And on the left side, you know, we put some features out that we knew would be part of what we were hoping to offer. And I think we're pleased that some of the key pieces of this, basically things around time spent accessing providers, waiting for providers, with providers, proved to be something that would make people consider using the private clinic if we offered one. So that's, you know, same day, next day appointment, et cetera. You can see the top 3 items, or 2 items. The top item is all about time. Can I get in when I need to get in? And the 4th bullet down is really kind of a critical thing to service excellence. Can I get in? Do I have to wait? Those things seem to be of interest to people, right? The healthcare system is not known for being ready for you unless you go to a special urgent care or ER, which is obviously the costly play. The other ones are about cost and access, and that barrier that we want to remove seems to resonate. On the right side, employees, I don't think these are strong, you know, limiting interest ideas, but they have a tone for they'd like to see a doctor, a physician if they could. That was the highest one of the things that would keep me from maybe engaging the clinic. So physician-led model is critical to what we're pursuing. Obviously, proximity to homes matters, and proximity to other healthcare resources. Those are the top 3 that are on that page. So we think that the survey validated that there's solid interest in what we're pursuing. And I guess one thing I didn't say, but it's very, very important to this, is this will be the way we envision it, this will be an optional program. People will choose to use it and essentially enroll with a provider. And if they do, the district or the utility will fund it. If they don't, they can go see their own providers. We want taking a half step back, you want people committed to primary care relationships first, not necessarily the ones we want to bring to them, but if we're going to bring one to them, we want people committed to that. We will pay for someone who's committed to this resource. And if you don't want it, use the traditional system and, you know, that sort of thing. So it's an optional program that we're pursuing, I guess is the point. With that, you know, that's the, you know, we think that this is a play not only on cost at the front door, like I mentioned before, but also on the balancing act of value, right? We can't sustain super high levels of benefits across the board in every category of care. What we can commit to, what this proposal what this proposal is we can provide high value primary care, the first care anyone should need. We can make it great for people. Beyond that, we may have to make some choices in the future, but that's what this is. So this is a foundational piece for not only the cost management, but also employee satisfaction, those 2 goals at the top. So with that, I'll just kind of let either Joe prompt me for stuff that I missed that he thinks you want to hear, or your questions.
I think I would only remind the board that our plan renewal is June 1st. What Anthony has presented here is kind of a prelude to more detailed information coming in May about the renewal. Okay. And this really follows from last year's renewal and some of the concerns we had, you know, leading up to this point in time.
I do have one question, Anthony. When we talk about, you know, the a private clinic, this is not something where they're looking for 24-hour care like an emergency room or anything like that, correct?
Well, believe it or not, there are providers, several of them that we've interviewed, they make their doctors available 24/7 through, texting, and if they need to see them, they will find a way to see them. Obviously, what COVID taught, we'll call it the traditional system, is that care can be done in a lot of different ways from a physician. This kind of model has been doing that for years. Jerry, believe it, 24/7 access to your doctor is part of the storyline for some of these providers.
Okay. Thank you.
And again, purposefully, why spend $3,000 or $5,000 at the ER when the doctor can say, it's probably this, why don't you try that? Or, that's very important part.
Using an emergency room only when it's a true emergency.
Right. And again, who should you trust? Your doctor to say, yeah, it's probably an emergency, you should go.
Right. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, Anthony. I'm familiar with Quad Graphics and Bemis, and them being larger employers with their on-site clinics. I'm just curious, and maybe next month is the right time to get this question answered, and I can wait in that case. But I'm curious with 30 employees how that would work.
Well, I think there's two parts to that question. The on-site part is very clear answer we have. This is not an on-site clinic. This is a near-site model that kind of replicates what Bemis, I know very intimately, but also Quad Graphics, Quad Med sells these services to employers. The market is moving to providing near-site instead of on-site. I mean, the big employer can afford on-site, but Bemis, for example, has a near-site access point. Okay, and think about it: if you're offering it to children and spouses on the plan, it's probably a more comfortable place to go, right? But a small employer can't get the resource, time, or value out of on-site, but clearly near-site is the play, and everyone that we're talking to, I don't have the numbers, but it's in the 70+% range where people are within 10 minutes of these clinics, okay, in terms of drive times. The second part is the money side. The money side in a self-funded plan like the utility has today, this is modeled as a per member, call it fixed rate to pay, and in turn all of the claims that don't happen on the health plan because people are using the clinic are removed. So it's been validated by actuarial studies over time to minimally be a one-to-one return on investment. So it's really it's going to cost something in a fixed cost, but a self-insured in plan, it should be displaced not almost entirely plus. And I would say the plus is in the 1.2 to 1.4 to 1 range. But you're really not doing it all for a big, huge return. You're doing it for control. Control over the spend, control over the referrals, control over the broader system that costs a lot of money. So if you can get care done in primary care, which the system providers just are taught to refer into specialty, the kinds of providers we're talking to, their default is to care for somebody if it's up to the scope of their licensure. So it's not pass them down the hall, it's care for them. And so that's where you get return.
Well, I've heard good things from the employees from both Bemis and Quad Graphics about the way their healthcare system works for them. So it'll be interesting to see how this works. Yeah,
but it's a cost play, but it's also a service play, a high value benefit that
that's what I've heard from employees. Yeah,
that's what you should hear. So
the question I have, my wife works in the Sheboygan County or Sheboygan School District, and they have a private clinic. Would this be modeled kind of or work kind of like that? They go through Intera. Would this be similar to something like that?
I would say it's similar categorically, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Again, I think the provider makeup is probably a little bit different than the Intera clinic, as I understand it.
Right.
And we're trying to lead with a physician at the front.
Right, yep. Right.
Which is again, there's just, secondary care providers can do a lot, but rank and file employees, we saw it in the survey, 35% might not even choose it if it was not a physician-led.
Right, yeah, there are PAs there, so.
Yeah, and again, it's a good care model. It's just a little different, and we're trying to be distinctive. The water utility has had great benefits and great experiences to provide to their people. We want to continue that tradition if we can, and this becomes a distinctive kind of first plant if we need to do other things down the road.
I have one other question. You said that if they use a private clinic, there's no charge, but if they opt to use a physician, their own physician, is there a charge for that, or how does that work? That
would be in the model that we've pursued. That would be they just use the health plan as it's built. Okay. So this is kind of carved out. We pay a fixed membership fee for anyone who's using it. If they don't, it goes through the health plan, however it's built at the time. And so it's by no means a takeaway, but we need to reward the people that are actually using this, in order to get it off the ground.
Yep, no, I understand. Thank you.
I think one thing to my ear that private clinic is almost a misnomer, because it isn't, private to the utility alone. It's more like an independent clinic, but I guess that's not the term used. But we would be one of other employers that would use the same private clinic.
Yeah, and again, some of the provider candidates truly limit it to only employer-sponsored patients. So it's private in that regard. It's, this group of companies. A couple of others are more just pure independent and still provide a doctor at the front door, still provide that 24/7 access. They just have a little bit more public access too. But Joe, we started in the private clinic space, and when we decided to want to offer multiple choices for people, that's when we kind of got a little more independent as the commonality point, right? Independence. And when we say independence, we're basically saying not a hospital-owned provider clinic. It's independent doctors.
I think today that I was not requesting any action item for the board, but just an update from Anthony on where we're at.
Appreciate your time, Anthony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, glad to share, and I will drop off at this point. Thank you all.
Okay.
We'll see you next month.
We'll see.
Okay. Take care.
Yep. Thanks.
All right. Back to our agenda. Item 4, raw water improvement project.
A few updates. One large item, we now have submitted the formal document to Public Service Commission. It's called the Construction Authorization Request. And that's, I think it was about a 15-page document with numerous attachments, really spelling out all the details of the project, why it's needed, what options we looked into, cost details, comparisons of alternatives, and just a whole range of information intended to show the need of the project for the project, and also why the project is the right size. It's not more than we need. So that now has been submitted electronically to the PSC, and that starts a clock ticking with them, and we're not really expecting any, certainly not a decision within 6 months, could be closer to 9 months. They may request more info, they may have follow-up questions. At the end of the process, hopefully we'll have approval of our project up to an authorized dollar limit. If that's exceeded by more than 10%, it requires a follow-up process with them. So they do have a fairly tight limit that they're authorizing. So that's now been submitted, received, and we're happy to reach that milestone. With the warmer weather and other developments, we have had 2 site visits within the past several weeks. Just getting our consultants on site again, looking at more details, fleshing out some finished items. The underwater sonar survey showing the lake depths and surface, or lake bed, was recently completed. We haven't seen the result of that yet. And they're moving along to final design, which is due by the end of June, and they're certainly on track for that. In the coming weeks, we will have some follow-up lake bed drilling. It won't be as extensive as the drilling done in 2006, but we need to just confirm a few points to convince both the contractors and the DNR, again, that circumstances out there haven't changed much. So there will be a derrick out there with a drilling rig, and they will be putting down several borings along the intake path line. We should be seeing that, fairly soon, once a little calmer weather out on the lake is what we're looking for. We did receive an updated cost estimate, which is close to what we had before, about $35 million of construction cost estimated at this point. I think that has some contingencies in it, but that's what we're being provided as the engineer's estimate at this point. And that's what we've been directing our plans to in terms of funding. On the funding front, there's been a lot of activity, I would say. I think we've all heard of the federal infrastructure bill, and it calls out sewer, water, and broadband projects in specific as candidates for this direct federal grant money. So I've indicated interest, and city officials are aware of this large project and the potential that it may qualify for infrastructure bill funding to some level. It's just not enough details yet. You can imagine that's going to be a lengthy process and has to be spelled out how those determinations are going to be made. There was an article in the press a few days ago about the infrastructure monies. In general, our project was cited there as well. So that's exciting. We're hopeful that we could get some funding of grant type through that infrastructure bill. We just don't know yet at this point in time. One advantage, that project will be shovel ready by the end of this year. And normally these federal monies, they want shovel ready projects, and ours is going to be that. And obviously it's infrastructure, obviously it's large, and it affects several communities as well in a large population. The American Rescue plan is more geared at COVID relief. The water utility did see a decrease in water revenues last year in March, April, and May due to COVID industrial turndown. Sanitary sewer revenues were also down because they were based on amount of water used. Again, we've made our interest in being reimbursed for those COVID losses known. And again, there's a process unfolding. We don't have all the details. It is a documented loss due to the pandemic. So there again, we're hopeful of seeing some of that recovered for our customers. FEMA BRIC, we're still evaluating the large project potential for that. We won't hear, we did apply last year, as you recall, for the shoreline protection system, a $1.8 million project, and we should hear about that later this summer. And then finally, we're on track to submit for a safe drinking water loan for the project by the end of June. The utility accountant has begun that process, and I'll be jumping in there fairly soon. And again, there we want to apply, and we're scored. There's not a funding, there's not a closing of that loan until 2022 at the earliest anyway. So if these other sources of funding come in, that program is very flexible. It's treated like a construction loan, so it would fund, we'll apply for the full construction estimate. And if it turns out that we don't need that, safe drinking water loans adjust to the actual construction at hand if the project makes the cut. So that also is underway and will be submitted. I would point out the project will be built on an existing easement that the city had granted to the water utility and recorded in 2007 specifically for this project. The impact on the parkland, just to note, is very minimal. I think the aerial portion of our project relative to the entire park is, I think it was about 0.2%. And it should be noted that there is an existing disc golf hole at that location. The hole itself would not have to be relocated due to the project, but the easement definitely impacts the fairway or the approach to the hole, and that would have to be relocated for sure. And the parks folks are aware of that and working on a design to reroute that fairway, if not the hole itself to some extent. So a lot of action on the project. Things are moving forward kind of at full speed at a lot of parallel places.
Any questions for Joel?
I'm just curious about the disc golf course. Who's paying for the work that's going into that right now? Are we paying for that?
We've been asked to cover that modification to the whole design, yes.
That sounds reasonable.
And that's the City Parks Commission that's doing that, or?
It would be the Public Works Department itself that manages or oversees the disc course activities there.
Okay. And again, to reiterate, this isn't something that's just come about. It's been planned for better than 15 years.
Yeah.
And has been since before we got the easement in 2007. So.
Yeah, and there's been extensive consideration of where this project could be located, and the utility grounds is just simply so tight, and there's just not much available space.
All right. Any other questions for Joe? If not, we'll move on to section 5 of our agenda. 5.1, request approval of the RO on reimbursement resolution.
Yeah, so the agenda term actually is not correct. It isn't a reimbursement resolution. It's an ordinance, as it's titled correctly on the document, authorizing execution of a principal forgiveness agreement with the DNR. I apologize for that error in the agenda phrase. It's a what it involves. We've applied last year. We began the application for a safe drinking water loan for lead service line replacements, private lead service line replacements, and DNR had funding this year anticipated in terms of they call principal forgiveness, or you might call grants, but they just happen to be run through the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program, but they are basically grants. But in order to receive this principal forgiveness loan, the entire principal would be forgiven. We need authorization, and that's what this request is about. That would go to the council authorizing this agreement with the DNR in terms of these financial figures.
All right, I will make a motion to approve the RO for the execution of the Department of Natural Resources Principal Forgiven Financial Assistance Agreement.
I'll second that.
Any other questions or comments? If not, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carried. 5.2, approval of an RO submitting the 2020 utility audit report.
You have the document before you, which really spells out all the details of the audit result. I would only add there were no material deficiencies discovered in the audit. It was completed remotely this year, as most of these are being done, but they did do some virtual tours of inventory items and some checks like that. Normally they would have done that in person, of course. I don't have a lot to add. It's a very extensive document spelling out all the details, and each year the board submits this to the Common Council as a matter of record.
And this is what I would call a clean opinion from the auditors.
Definitely.
Yes. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the RO submitting to council.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Motion carried.
I did not read all 53 pages, but I did read the opinion, so.
Okay, good.
I looked at all 53 pages, to be honest with you.
Usually I do. Usually I do, but reading something like that on my iPad is less than desirable. If I was going to do that, I'd prefer to have it hard copy.
Okay. All right. 5.3. You can print it out, you know. Yeah,
I could. You're right.
All right. 5.3 we covered earlier. So 5.4, request for approval, engineering proposal for the Sheboygan River water main crossing.
I'm looking for a document here. Excuse me just a moment.
Yeah, it's on board docs.
Well, that's a summary, but I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I didn't attach the. So if I could ask the board members to read the summary, and I'm going to pull up and the actual proposal, and I'll share the details verbally here. If you give me one moment. Well, I don't have access to the document that I thought, so I would request that lay over till next month. It involves engineering design work to install a new river crossing under the Sheboygan River, but I want to present the full proposal, and I don't have it, and I would like to get it to the board ahead of time, so I would just ask that be delayed.
Okay.
We need a motion to that effect. Table it till next month.
Sure.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. All right, we'll talk about it next month. Update on the Wdnr sanitary inspection, number 5.5.
Yes, so last week our inspector did come and conducted what's called the sanitary inspection of both the plant and the distribution system. And we'll have a written report later, but I would just report that there were no significant findings. There were a few rusty screens that need to be replaced. Nothing new noted that was a deficiency. And they come and spend most of the days. It's a pretty thorough inspection. So I would just commend our operations department and construction maintenance for both the plant condition and the reservoir and pump station conditions, which all met with WDnr requirements.
Very good. Number 5.6, request approval for purchase of water main hydrant and valve stock.
So here we have just stock items going into construction season, just a variety of items, including some, you'll see, couplings that are used for repairing water main breaks on larger pipes, the mixture of inventory items.
And we're looking at Ferguson being the low.
That's correct.
I'll make a motion to approve Ferguson Waterworks for the purchase of water main parts and valves.
I'll second that.
Any other questions, comments?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carried. 5.7, approval of proposal for replacement of filter turbidity meters.
So by DNR standard and requirement, we're required to have a turbidimeter on each filter effluent, measures basically the clarity of the water, and is a recordable piece of data that we log each hour. The existing units have become outdated and obsolete. They were installed in 2011 and 2012. They've functioned very well, but they're no longer repairable. Parts are no longer available. So we had budgeted for replacements this year, and you'll see the recommendation from the operations supervisor to use the Hawk 5300s. A little bit of an improvement as well. And I think after 10 years, we're in need of replacement.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the purchase of the sensor units?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor,
No,
say
sir.
aye.
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 And chair votes aye. All right, request approval proposal for roof replacement.
So 2 years ago, we began a relationship with Craft Roofing in terms of having them complete a roof management report on all roofs under the board's jurisdiction. And they did a very nice job of assessing them and grading them. And we're using that now as more of an asset management tool for the roofing, at least. Two now have come up that we're recommending we'd like to replace this year, having grades of D and F, which are not so good. We do have a proposal from Kraft for these replacements. I'm not aware that this would be, well, first of all, it doesn't exceed the limits for state construction bidding law, and it is, I don't think it qualifies as a construction project either, but it's below the $25,000 limit for those projects.
Which was our budget for that item?
Is 25,000, yes.
Sure. I would move to approve.
I would second that.
Any further comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Motion carried. And 5.9, approval of engineering proposal for slope stabilization along the utility driveway. The Buffalo Pit.
The Buffalo Pit, yes. So the Buffalo Pit is a very large gully, drainage pit, whatever you will call it, Buffalo Pit, the northwest of the utility driveway. Long ago, before my time, maybe Jerry will recall, but there was put in a heavy timber retaining wall along that slope. And we don't have any real record of the details of it, which is unusual. We've searched high and low, but we do know that the wall is failing and is beginning to move towards the pit itself. If you're in the vicinity and you look, you can see the curb line there is very, very crooked and unstable, not at a dangerous level, but it's certainly unstable. We did some field work several years ago to gather boring data on the soils and to survey the area. But we'd like to continue to develop more of a design plan as to rehabbing the slope. We really can't repair a driveway until we repair this slope, stabilize this slope for the coming decades. A couple issues have come up. When we're doing the raw water project, we're going to be digging the shore well, which is a 30-foot hole in the ground, more or less, and there's going to be a lot of material there. We're wondering, could that be used to help stabilize the slope instead of hauling it elsewhere? So we have some questions like that we'd like to address before the raw project really is up and running. You know, there's kind of two basic ideas here. Can the wall be stabilized and rehabilitated, or do we need a new wall or possibly a second wall down lower in conjunction with stabilizing the upper wall? But we had budgeted for this work. Donahue had done the original physical investigation. We'd like to move along with them into a project leading to more of a design point. Also answering the question, can we possibly do any of this work with our construction crew, or is it going to have to be something that we bid out and incur that kind of expense?
I would move to approve.
I agree. I would second it.
I mean, just a comment, it's been a long time, and that is quite a deep hole there. And if that wall does leave us or all of a sudden collapse, you're going to have some major problems. So again, trying to be proactive in making sure that we've got ourselves covered. I think it's a very good idea. Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carried. Section 6, Personnel, Engineering Department update.
Just wanted to give a little bit of an update. The board's information. Our utility engineer, Mr. Tracy, is planning to sit for and take his professional engineering examination in, I believe it's early May. That's quite a big deal for him and for us if he's able to pass that and become a certified engineer with the state of Wisconsin. That's quite an accomplishment. Mm-hmm. He's been with us several years now and had taken over for Mike Short, the longstanding utility engineer, and has done an outstanding job, and we're excited about him reaching that point. Our civil engineer technician, Mr. Onya, is also reaching a big point. He's weeks away from completing his 4-year degree in engineering technology through the UW Sheboygan, UW Green Bay at Sheboygan. And Mr. Onya began with us with his 2-year degree in civil technology. And he's been able to work full-time and complete the requirements for his 4-year degree. And that's also a huge accomplishment, and he has also done an outstanding job in the department. And I guess I would just inform the board of those developments, and with an expectation of having some follow-up recommendations when we reach those points for those individuals.
Both of them are
congratulated for obtaining those 2 points. I think it's fantastic, especially being able to do it while, doing it here at UWGB Sheboygan, as well as just, moving towards, I guess, other step in their professional lives.
It's exciting news for both gentlemen.
Thank you. We'll look forward to your recommendations, Joe.
Thank you.
With that, number 7, our next meeting would be the 3rd Monday of May, which is the 17th of May. Anyone have a problem with that date?
No, I have it in my calendar already.
Tom, we're good for you?
I'm good, yeah.
All right, Joe?
Good.
All right. With that, we'll accept a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now you can get up.
Thank you.
All right,
guys.
Have a great week. A great rest of the month of April, and we'll see you next month.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.